Story 1. My fiancé and I had been together for 4 years and engaged for 7 months. I found out she cheated on me while I was away for Christmas. Refuses to even try to R. My fiancé and I were dating for 4 years. We moved rather fast and have been through a ton of trauma together, mostly from her past relationships. I recently found out she cheated on me about 1.5 months ago when I was visiting my family over the holidays. She was the love of my life. The most beautiful, sexy and smart woman I've ever met. Some backstory: we met in medical school in the Midwest. She was this beautiful and amazing girl, and I felt lucky to have her. Shortly after starting to date, her sister died, and I lost my whole medical career. She asked to move in only a few months after we started dating, and I said okay. I did everything to support her, to help her heal for years, got her through medical school financially, emotionally, and helped with her studies. We got through COVID together. Lifted weights together almost every day. Did all the things a couple does. I showered her with gifts, compliments, passion, and gave her all of me. The sex was glorious. Around the 2.5-year mark, around summer of 2021, she said she wanted to go on a break, and I begrudgingly agreed as long as she didn't sleep with anyone else. I know she has a lot of attention-seeking behavior, so I thought she may have just wanted some new attention. On her birthday in October of that year, while we were on the break, she told me she was going out with her girlfriends for the night. Something didn't sit right with me. After about a month, our relationship seemed to be back on track. She seemed happy being with me. She said a major reason she was feeling like she was being suffocated and needed space was that she didn't know if I was serious about her because I had not proposed. I thought 2022 was a great year for us. In January we got a dog together, a little perfect golden doodle. She paid for him, but I signed the papers. Her name tag says my last name. She was going to be graduating med school soon and matching into a residency program, so she had been bringing up being engaged almost on a weekly basis. She gave me an ultimatum of propose or she's out when she starts residency. I proposed in May on a beautiful trip. She accepted. I felt like I had won the lottery with her, and she made me so happy. I packed up our whole apartment and drove myself and our dog and catus across the country to California while she flew. California has been hard on me. None of my community is here. None of my family is here. My job was still back in the Midwest, so I was working remotely and was home a lot. I would say I was at home maybe 85% of the time. I think this caused my fiancé some resentment. Fiancé worked very long hours. I was okay and willing to sacrifice all of this for our relationship. On the bright side, as well as continuing to all the bills, it meant that I could act as more of a caretaker due to her long work hours. I mostly took care of the dog. I cooked all the meals, got the groceries, tracked all the finances, all the regular boring, everyday SHT that PPL have to do in order to survive. By late August she had stopped wearing her ring to work, which I found really suspicious, and I spoke to her about it. She said that it was due to patients harassing her because it was such a nice ring. I let this red flag go. She said that if I got her a smaller silicone band ring she would wear it, but I never did. Why? I'm not sure. Didn't seem like a priority. In retrospect, maybe I should have. She still wore the ring on weekend when we would go out or if she went out to do something in public with her friends. I went home to visit my family for Christmas. While I was away, she was acting strange. We usually spoke on the phone at least once in a day, but then she stopped picking up at night when I called. Taking hours to text back. I knew something was up. The night I got back, December 28th, D-Day. I confronted her about it and she said she was just busy with work, but I had been suspicious for a while. When she was asleep, I decided to go through her laptop and I found out she had an affair with a sugar daddy a few months ago. I couldn't understand it because I paid most of the bills, so I didn't see why she needed a sugar daddy. I couldn't believe my eyes. They had sex multiple times, and the night she told me she was spending time with girls, she effed him in a parking lot. I snooped further and found out she was cheating with someone she met at work. They went on 3 dates. The first ended in a clothed lap dance that made the guy come, and the third ended with unprotected sex at his place. I woke her up and showed her what I found, and she confessed everything to him. She told me she liked the sex and how rough he was with her. I called the AP, and he didn't even know I existed. She lied to him as well, saying she was single. He blocked her. To make matters worse, this was the day before we were supposed to sign a New Year-long lease together, as our first 6-month lease was up. The landlords let her sign the lease herself. I stayed with friends for about 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, we talked and agreed to try couples therapy, although she did not know yet if she wanted to try to be in a relationship. After the first week of therapy, things seemed to be getting better. She invited me to move back in. We were having a lot of sex. I was buying a lot of furniture for the new place. She was no longer talking to the AP. Then, the Saturday after our first therapy session, she went out with her friends to a nightclub. Her AP happened to be there by coincidence, that she got to chatting with him. I know she got food with her friends at about 2:30 a.m. and arrived back home at around 4 a.m. After this, she did a complete 180. Completely stopped trying to R at all. When she got home that night, I confronted her, and she confessed kissing AP. That was the last straw for me, and I walked out on her. She continued talking to the AP. Eventually, AP found out that she lied to him again and blocked her. She then went on a trip with her family and got back home yesterday. She said she wanted to talk. I figured she was no longer solely attracted to me since around August and thought she could string me along. Which was just 3 months after getting engaged and barely 2 months after uprooting my life and moving to California. I am so blindsided by this. We are both very fit and attractive, but I know the AP was taller than me. She also said she was feeling smothered and caged up because of how often I was home and because I wasn't working a traditional 9 to 5. I asked her why she didn't just talk to me about this then, so we could try to fix the relationship and figure out why she was feeling this way. She told me she was sorry and wants to try again. I told her that she already effed up and there was no way I was going to take her back. I know I simply have to pack up and move back home to the Midwest. My sister says I shouldn't fight for the dog because it would just remind me of my fiancé. She's probably right. I don't understand how someone can change their mind about loving someone so quickly. She was the one that pushed me to propose. She was the one that pushed to originally move in. She was the one that pushed for me to move with her to California. We were just talking about having kids and buying a house together this past November. I sacrificed so much for 4 years, and she can't sacrifice 1 month to try to give her a shot to even see if mending things is possible. I eventually told her parents the reason for our split and things aren't looking good for her. I decided I was done with her and she could sign the lease herself if she wanted. She begged and pleaded with me not to leave her, saying she loved me but made a mistake. But I couldn't imagine myself getting married to a wretch like her, and I was counting myself lucky to have escaped. Our anniversary would be on Valentine's Day. Any advice would be appreciated. Story 2. After 6 years, I'm done. I've noticed that I've been posting on these subs more so lately than I have in years. I attributed this mostly to the fact that mine and my WW's external issues being very similar to how they were when she had started her affair in 2016. However, another reason I've found myself back here is that over the last couple months she has been communicating how difficult it's been for her in recent years, feeling unloved due to my emotional withdrawal from her after much of her trickle truth and lies came to light in 2018. I made the conscientious decision to start working on showing more vulnerability and stepping outside of my comfort zone to work on repairing some of the damage. This is much easier for me to do now that I have had years personal growth. I understand many of my own shortcomings in the relationship, why many of them are justifiable due to the amount of crap she put me through, and why it's understandable that she needs me to work on these areas. That came to a head with me lashing out at her in our hotel room at Family Resort on Friday night, Saturday morning. After getting triggered by her bailing on SX late Friday night, I was left wide awake in the bed with her passed out next to me. It gave me time to think about the countless times that I've communicated how she rarely demonstrates a desire to initiate sex. It was one of those stereotypical rabbit holes we've all been down mentally. I ended up making a 4-page bullet point list of all the extremely effed up things she did or said to me. I took screenshots of the list and sent it to her while she was asleep. That led to a very minor argument when she woke up in the morning, but ultimately she told me she was sorry for everything on the list, and we had a pretty great time with the kids between Saturday to this afternoon. However, by the time we left to return home, she had a couple drinks because I was going to drive us and wanted her to have a little more time to have fun before her work resumes tomorrow. While we were on the drive, our kids were completely passed out from all of the activities this weekend, and we had some quality one-on-one time. We talked about her dad, her friends, and our relationship. The conversation started off okay with her and I talking about our relationship over the last couple months. We both pointed out some positives, and she pointed out something that's really been bothering her since it happened. Basically, a few months ago she told me out of seemingly nowhere that she was battling self-deleting ideation. I didn't take it well because it was alarming to me, and I had no idea things had gotten so bad for her with postpartum depression, home life, her family, and work. It's weird to say, but I really wasn't surprised she felt that way though, because I knew she was struggling. What shocked me was hearing her say it to me, because she usually retreats into herself whenever she's going through a depressive period of time. Anyways, back to the car ride discussion from today. I apologized to her for how I reacted a couple months ago and explained how that event, coupled with her telling me how hard it's been feeling unloved, both really impacted my actions and thought process. I pointed out how I've been sending her I love you messages out of the blue, checking in on how she's handling life most nights, spending more quality time with her without being on my phone, etc. Pointing that out seemed to put a smile on her face, and she acknowledged how impactful it's been for her this month with me doing little things that have been customized to her love language. That's mostly where the positives ended from the conversation. A few more things were mentioned after that and the conversation turned silent. This gave me time to have a silent conversation with myself. While I was thinking, it suddenly dawned on me that the conversation was the exact type of stuff I would communicate with her instead, so I decided to acknowledge to her that I was having a conversation with myself and wanting to explain some of the changes with me that have occurred over time. This led to me explaining where I was at mentally in the build-up to me lashing out at her Friday night in the hotel. Over the years, I noticed that she was acting up and I really couldn't put my finger on it, but I suspected something was up and I always tried to figure it out. While we were driving, I started explaining how I was struggling with acknowledging to myself that after I received her SOS signal a couple months ago, I've been stepping outside of my comfort zone and ignoring the plethora of major issues that I feel were never resolved. More specifically, I said she never gave me the level of effort she has received or is currently receiving from me. I also pointed out some of the key issues that eventually led to my emotional withdrawal in the relationship. One of those issues was she was never upfront and honest about anything. She made me feel unloved and not wanted. Sometime along our conversation, I accused her of having an affair, and to my greatest surprise, she broke down and admitted that she had an affair in 2017 with some guy. Long story short, in 2017, I found a FB conversation between her and another guy that had solely explicit memes, jokes about her inappropriate conversation, and heavy flirting. I hadn't viewed Paul as a legitimate concern, especially when comparing him to her AP or myself, so I never really pressed her on it. About 2 years ago, I stopped trying to pressure her to come clean about what happened between her and Paul because she just wouldn't budge on admitting what happened. Here's what I was able to verify up to that point in time. She told me that in November 2016, she had planned to leave me for her AP, but found out that he got another girl pregnant. She decided to spend a Friday night out with Paul and his friends. Paul lived about an hour away from us, so she ultimately spent the night at Paul's friend's house. She admitted that they got drunk and flirted that night, but nothing else happened between them. However, she texted her close female friend a selfie of the outfit asking if it was cute or not. Additionally, I had found proof that before and potentially after that night they were sending each other solely explicit messages. So in summary, around that time she felt heartbroken by AP choosing a relationship with a different girl instead of her. She spent the night out drinking, clubbing with a random group of people that included Paul, who she knew had a sole interest in her at the time. They flirted with each other throughout the evening, and she spent the night in Paul's friend's house with Paul present, but they didn't have sex or kiss or anything. I'm not asking what you guys think happened. We all know something happened that night because we're not effing idiots. I've suspected this for a long time, but I just got too worn out investigating her lies and cover-ups. I withdrew from her and our relationship became way less chaotic, and I began to really work on myself in the years that led up to now. Fast forward back to our car ride conversation today. I explained that she wasn't honest about what happened with Paul, and I wasn't going to ask her again since she's never demonstrated the courage or desire to step outside of herself or her comfort zone to help me heal, which is exactly what I've been doing for her lately. I pointed out that I wasn't mad about it, but it really bugged me that nothing I ever went through was ever enough motivation for her to change. I pointed out how self-centered she was in regards to reconciliation and my healing. She didn't outright object to this being said, but she effed up and said that I actually did want to ask her if anything happened between her and Paul. She wasn't wrong, and I took the opportunity to say why. Is there something you want to come clean about? She replied nothing happened. And that was what sent the conversation spiraling. I told her that it was nice getting confirmation that some things will never change. We went back and forth, mostly me absolutely filleting her with every absurd detail I had connected to that night and cutting her legs out from underneath her with every rebuttal she tried hurling at me. At some point, I had her confirm that her and Paul stayed in the same house that night and asked her if they stayed in the same room. Yes. Then I asked her if they had slept in the same bed. Yes. I busted out laughing because I never knew that detail, and it made her defense somehow even more absurd. She asked me if she should just tell me what I wanted to hear even though it wasn't the truth. I said yes, go ahead and humor me. I'd like to hear you say it. She said it, and then I told her to go ahead and lie about the details of what happened that night. She asked me what I meant, to which I explained, well, you just lied by saying you both had sex. Why don't you draw some more inspiration from reality and tell the details of how it happened? And that's when she thought it was a good time to say, okay, I'll just tell you the details of what happened between me and Nick, and I'll pretend that's what happened that night between me and Paul. She proceeds to lie about the details from the night staying with Paul by actually detailing the night between her and her AP, and it got more petty from there. At the end of our car ride, when we pulled up in our driveway, I opened my door, turned towards her in the passenger seat, and told her that I was using March 10th as the beginning of a trial separation. Then I got out and walked inside the house. She looked like she saw a ghost when I said it because she knew I meant it. Pretty wild turn of events considering how we had been improving in most areas over the last couple years now, but I'm not changing my mind. This needed to happen years ago, and I'm doing what I need to in order to continue healing and becoming a better person and father.